All right, you were muted. I can't hear you. Grab the guitar. Give us a little intro.
Hi, Sid. A little intro.
Hey, I see a guitar. Give us a little intro. Come on.
Well,
Start
it's
us
an
off.
electric guitar. It's an electric guitar, Sid. But
Here we go. What we got?
what do you like?
Movie theme. Well, Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones on the guitar?
Mission Impossible. The little
Um,
Beatles. Can't always get with just the Rolling Stones. Love, love me do. Be what you got? What you got? Beatles. Give me a Beatles.
how's that?
Great, great. It's
It's been a while since I've tried to play James Bond, but this is it.
hear it.
Something like that.
Like, how's that? Like going from tension to intensity to peace, or tone to silence, or frequencies, relative parts to self. Woo!
Ooh.
Yeah, Bond, James Bond. Are you muted?
Was I muted? Did you hear what I was playing?
I heard everything, and then for a moment it muted again. I
That's
heard your
weird.
James Bond. We were doing James. When your glasses went off, it was like it was too much for the computer. It was like, whoa, what's going on? You
Whoa.
were disclosing something.
Let's take it down a notch. Okay.
Fun of that. So this is like our third conversation, bringing in the gifts of Byron Katie into our inner explorations, into EIFS, bringing in music, tone.
Mm.
I was just watching a interview with Joseph Campbell, Power of Myth,
Mm.
the hero's journey, the universality of this in mythology. It's just all, it's just the universality of this human experience. Where are we going today, Ethan? You
I
got some
love
stuff. You
that.
got some Byron Katie stuff. What do you got? What comes up?
Yeah, I got some Byron Katie stuff, but I just want to say that I absolutely love that power of myth. I mean, I just lived on that for a while. And one of my favorite quotes from that, if I may I?
You may.
Because it reminds me of a conversation that you and I had, or some voice messages you and I left each other after that last session, which is when Bill Moyers says to Joseph Campbell, um, but we're all searching for the same thing. We're all searching for the meaning of life, right? And Joseph Campbell says, no, we're not. We are searching for the experience of being alive. And Bill Moyers pushes him a little bit. He's like, really? Because like all these ancient traditions and all this stuff, it's like it's all about finding the meaning of life. And Joseph Campbell says, when you have the experience of being fully alive, there is no question in your mind of what the meaning of life is.
Yes. And so it becomes fun to translate that into self in parts. Even the like this hero's journey, the one that is wanting the meaning of life, fulfill. I mean, we can find it as this, as a part. Excuse me. What about that? What about like, how do you translate that? How do you translate that into self in parts? We're really looking as far as this aliveness, because once we know this aliveness, you say, Joseph Campbell says, once we know this aliveness, we know what the mean, we know meaning. What do you do with all that?
Well, to me, it's it has to do with, I mean, how it translates to this conversation or this work, this effortless internal family systems work, is that when I'm blended with a part and I'm living my life from that part, I feel like there's just a very narrow lens through which I'm seeing the world. And that when all of a sudden, like I start to notice two parts or two or more parts, or when I have the experience of being connected to self and with parts, then all of a sudden, like internally, my experience is like very different, where it's like there's a much greater the lens opens up so much greater, both internally and externally. And I have the feeling that I'm not just like slogging through some bad dream, but that I'm alive.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. What if this is what we're playing with? What if this thing, like, oh God, all we're doing, it's like I've been in my inner world again. We're more of that, more of like self, more parts. But what if it's so much bigger than that? What if it really is what Joseph Campbell is pointing to? What if it is the hero's journey? What if it is, what if it's all, what if we're finding it all inside with our parts? So we can project it outside and play it in the world, but in a way we can even be more intimate with it within our own system, with the, he'll talk about the cave we're scared of entering, where our real treasures lie. And in the myth, they have to go and like fight the dragons or fight the soldiers to be able to go there, or they to find, or it's fight Darth Vader. Trust the Force, Luke. Trust the Force, Luke. That Campbell likes talking about. But like, what the hell is that? What the hell's the Force?
What do you think the force is?
Oh, I just love this. I love this, what we're playing with, because what can it be other than our nature, than this beingness, right? Than this shared beingness, than this, that we call the self, but the connectedness that it is, or
Mm.
this, what you say, this aliveness, because this is all we're playing with, right? It's the foreground and background, the parts that arrive in time, and this, it's timeless, this beingness. And I mean, I don't know. It was fun because I hadn't thought about that in years till it came up today, and we never talk about the forest, but it's like, but what the hell, how does it translate into this? This, it's funny, Dick Schwartz he'll like say, what does he say, like something like, oh, may the self, he'll literally say this, may the self be with you. That's his line.
Mm.
And it was right from Star Wars. And it's like, and they say, may the force be with you, Luke, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, what the hell is that? But this, this connectedness, this, if we say our nature is love, that this beingness is love, it's out the self, that maybe that, could it be? I mean, could that be what they're playing with? And it's so fun because it also makes it like, as boys, we want to be like Luke Skywalker, being the Force, close your eyes, blah blah blah. I'm with Yoda and all that stuff, and it's like, wow, maybe it becomes it's we get to be on the hero's journey. I don't know.
For sure. And for sure. And isn't that what it's all about? Like that hero's journey, those myths and fighting the dragons and all that stuff. Like to me, it's more real that stuff is internal than external. Not that there aren't challenges in the world. Of course there are, but like, these dragons or these a cyclops or a Medusa, or it's like these things feel like to me, internal things.
Yeah, and then, like, if we truly, fully faced the challenges inside, the cyclopses, the medusas, the monsters, okay, the monsters inside, the fears, the contractions. If we faced all of those, then when we experience, I don't know what our greatest fear is out there. Maybe it's a hurricane that comes and destroys. I live in Florida, our neighborhood, or a politician that is doing things that terrifies us, or a neighbor that hates us because of our skin color or our religion and threatens us. Like the fear that would come up, right? It's like if that has already been met inside, then it can still respond fully to all of that happens in the world, but there's no longer, it's no longer, what we call burdened in IFS is no longer, it's no longer a burden charge that responds.
Mm.
I don't know. I love playing with this. I've never had this conversation in terms of IFS, and I just got excited about it because it was the craziest thing. I was just watching it last night for the first time, and I used to, like you, I used to love those conversations with Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyers, and it was just like, oh, and thinking about Joseph. That I had his book and all. I read his stuff, and then, but this was 20 years ago. And then this morning I wake up, and on the IFS non-dual community site, Laura Petraeus has written all about Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. It's like, wow, I love this. And so anyway, but, here we are.
Here we are, and I love that to bring this back to Byron Katie for a second, uh, that idea of meeting who would you be in the hurricane without the thought, right? Or who would you be with the neighbor who's threatening you without the thought that he's threatening you, or right? That's what you're talking about. I think like
That, yes.
once you've met it internally, then the contraction doesn't have the hold on you, so that if you actually do experience it in the external world, you're meeting it with something other than just contraction.
Yes. But Joseph Campbell makes it so much more fun because he's like, you got to go slay your dragon, or you got to go on the quest, and you have to go through. It's like the Princess Bride. You got to go through the forest of fear, and you have to do this and that, and that's
Yeah.
so much fun. But like for us, hey, you just gotta like, what do you mean? Oh, I've just got to welcome my parts. What? um,
Yes. Yes. And like I feel like we started to go here in the group the other day, where it's like somebody said, it's okay to sit on a park bench and cry, but it's not okay to sit on a park bench and rage. Like people might freak out, they might call the police. Like, so, some of these internal monsters, are what I mean to say is that it's not necessarily easy to just meet your when you say, oh yeah, all we have to do is meet our parts, or meet our parts with kindness and compassion, or yeah, that's one thing, but to actually do it, I think really can feel like facing a dragon, right?
uh, I can still find terror here, and it's like, I bet you're facing the dragon, going into the cave, and the dragon is this little guy with this little sword, and it's like, oh, great! It's like, are you out of your mind? And it's like sometimes when we touch, right, these things, whatever these really, you see, oh gosh, like I forget what the movie is. Like, you see these movies about people who were bullied and then they become like, they become weightlifters and they become huge. Arnold Schwarzenegger, but let's say he was bullied by this medium-sized guy, and then he's this big Arnold Schwarzenegger. But then he runs into this guy in life, and the movies make fun of this sometimes, and he just like becomes this the little 10-year-old that was bullied
Yeah.
because it's like that it hasn't been it hasn't been healed yet. Like whatever that trauma, that contraction that's been carried. And so I'm agreeing with you. Yes, because I know when this, whatever the terror that still can be touched here and said, whatever that's like, it just is so loud. I mean, it's like 10 dragons surrounding me or sometimes it feels like I'm under ice and I can't breathe. It's like, that's not, that's scary. And can we really, this is what sucks. It really sucks. Like, can we really be with that? Can we like, wow, under ice, can't breathe, can't find a way out of the ice underwater? Um, like, can you accept that? I don't know. I'm still working on that one.
Mm. Oof. Yeah, I just love that image, and I feel like we all can just relate to that, right? This big guy who spends 20 years. I mean, I just read about this kid who went to prison. He sold drugs and he got nailed. He got sent to prison for 30 years or something. No, he didn't. He some guy offered him $1,000 to deliver a box to someone. He was like a 17-year-old kid. So he took the box, he delivered the box, and it was a sting. And he went to jail for 30 years or something. And in jail, he became this like huge guy. I mean, just this monstrous. He said he spent all day lifting weights. Um, but the article was about how when he got out, he was still like sort of a child or an adolescent in his mind, right? So here he's this big hulking guy. Um,
Yeah.
and in that sense, I feel like it's maybe even easier to face demons in the real world than it is to turn in and face what you're
Yeah.
talking about. Um, being okay with being under the ice. Let's say. I mean, that's terrifying.
But it's like, and I love the updating part of it. I love that word updating in IFS because it's just like some of these fears, they're just, they don't, for that, the guy that's huge now did all this. It's like, okay, I can handle life and stuff. But then whatever those fears were that never got to be seen, and they're still the contractions that get touched, or like what we protect. It's like why we have these protectors, right? We don't want to touch these things again. I know better. Like a horrible breakup when I actually first time I asked this girl out, and she was like, I was like, I don't know, like it's eighth grade. I was like, I didn't ask her out. It was a dance. I go to her door and ask her, and it was just like a no. And it's like you can feel the devastation, this little Sid, eighth grade Sid. And it was like, um, and you can still find, the idea of that hurt. It's like, but it might be that. It could be something like that, or be being bullied or horrible. I mean, so many just the things that happen in this lifetime to people. And I'm not, I don't, and that that's right, the hero's journey. It's like, and that kind of, again, it kind of stinks, right? Because we hear, you and I have spent time with Katie, for example, and others like her, others who have found this space that we listen to on YouTube. They don't, to me, there's like a fine print that they don't include. That is kind of what we're talking about. Oh, and as you start to touch this stuff, as you start to touch the love, the bliss, maybe the force, this beingness, this okayness that's here. Well, there's a little bit more I need to tell you. When you start to touch that and your system starts to open, everything you've ever held down, it gets to be welcomed. It gets to come home. And some of that is going to be really scary and uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah. I remember I went through a phase where I was just so mad at Katie. right? I was just so mad at her because, in a sense, I feel like she didn't have to do that. Of course, she did on some level, but it happened so quickly for her, right? Like,
Right.
she was in this moment of agony on the ground and she wanted to die. And all of a sudden, all the walls just broke down simultaneously, is how she describes it. The internal mechanism that holds
Yeah.
it all together just kind of collapsed and she was left with bliss. And it was like, why do I have to muck around? Why do I have to muck
I want it
around?
like that. Come on, I want it like that.
Just give it to me. Just update me all at once, man.
Oh, but you know, when you hear other people talk about, they say like, you know, that Eckert and Katie are like such the rare exceptions, that that's not the model of how it actually works for we human beings.
Yeah. And what that means is what you're talking about. And I feel like, yeah, I feel like very few people talk about that. I, you know, very few people talk about that. That when you start to open up, yeah, and touch this space, that you have access to these things that have been shoved way down deep, right? Because they're scary or angry or sad or whatever.
Yeah, but I often think about it like this. I think about it like if Ethan and I were like, okay, like you're down in Florida visiting your family. Like, Ethan and I get to go out. Let's say we like had some, right? We're gonna go out partying, whatever that looks like, if we even do things like that anymore. And I have a friend who's gonna be our driver. And like they have a really nice car. They take us out. It's like, whoa, we go out to nice dinner, and we're gonna go out to this club, and we're gonna do that big thing. But then we're driving down this alley, and let's say it's in the winter and it's a really cold night, and we see like a mom with three young kids, and we can tell they're suffering and they're really cold, and they're in that alley. You just can't keep driving. You can't, it's like when you see that, you're like, oh my gosh. Even though it's like what's more fun than playing with Ethan and going out and doing whatever the ideal create fun night is, you see that and it's like the heart just, well, okay, you gotta help, you gotta find warmth for them. It feels like it's very similar in this is the with our inner world, that yeah, we touch this openness, this spaciousness, this love, this okayness, and then it's like, oh wow, there's that part that was bullied that just doesn't feel safe. And it's like, what is more lovely and wonderful than welcoming that part and helping it find that, wait, safety is, no, it's not here, it's, the world is scary, people are mean, I can't trust people. Wait, but there's safety here, there's love, there's acceptance. So I think that's the good news. Like there's the fine print, they don't talk about this, but there's a good news to it too, that it's like it ends up being, we discover for our special night out, the most beautiful part of it was getting to know that family and helping them find warmth.
Yeah, and it would be, right? It would be. That would be the memorable part.
Yeah.
If you went out 100 times and that only happened once, you would just keep thinking about the time that happened, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really sweet. Hmm.
And then I think there's even something more here with, I don't know where you want to go with this. I love bringing that we brought Joseph Campbell in. We got Joseph Campbell and Katie, and we got like going out partying in. It's like, how does this all? Where are we going to go? Where are we going with all of this? Because it's
Well,
being
you were
recorded. I'm going to put this on the website and get to share it with people. It's like, what's interesting?
just about to say something. I was curious. And then you cut yourself off. It seemed like.
It's the it's one of the conversations we've had it's kind of in the second view of effortless IFS. It's about just that discernment between beingness and parts. And it's the love of the peace that's here. It's the love of just this, right? Hey man, I just want to go to a retreat and fall into this okayness. This okayness is so good. I like it. And it's such a break from blah 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 blah, the sense of the wanting that's here. Um, it's there's something about all of it, including all of it. Really, the celebration of this, the voice, the part in us that's just like, I'm so tired of working so hard, all the responsibility, all of the seeking. It's like the embrace of our full humanity. It's like something allows it all to be here. It's like the embrace of all of this. And it's like the fall, it's like I just adore the Thich Nhat Hanh poem, Call Me by My True Names, because it's such this deep embrace of our humanity, of all of it, where he sees it all in every expression of it out there. And I love Thich Nhat Hanh because it seems to be like he's found it in all of everything that shows up in this. There's just there's adoring it, and as we found in our friend Katie, I think we find the same thing. There's just the love of, she calls it loving what is. And I think at first, I know my journey at first it was to get away from and go to, and like now I'm just so intrigued with finding it in Sid wakes up and he's feeling grumpy and he's just, "Wow, I don't want to get out of bed." It's like almost like trying to find the enjoyment and the beauty in all of this. That seems to be the game that's going on here.
Finding the beauty and enjoyment in all of it.
Just like I've talked about this, just like you and your son, like it's so much easier with children, but with your son, it's like, oh, it's so fun when he's just wanting to play and have fun with dad. But then there's also your son who's just like, no, no. And like, and sometimes we're like, no, I want you to be different. Yes, I want you to come play. I want you to be fun. But then often you can also see the no, and it's just like you just fall in love with the no too. And all of it, however your son is expressing, it's just such innocence and beauty.
All right, so can I give you an example? Okay, great. So you gave this example of like waking up in the morning and feeling grumpy and saying like, where can I find the enjoyment in this? But let's say, I'm going to use myself, not you, but let's say it's the middle of the afternoon and I suddenly notice that I'm really stressed out, right? Like really stressed out. And I have a lot I have to do. I have to pick up my son. I have to cook dinner. I have a board meeting online. I have all these things, right? And so I notice I'm really stressed. So one thing I can do then is to like just kind of hang out and give love to that stressed part, I guess. But another thing I've been trying to do is in those times when I feel really stressed, is to try to feel the beingness at the same time as the parts. But sometimes either one of those things, either loving the part or welcoming the stressed part, or trying to find the being at the same time as the part, feels like, or maybe is, trying a desperation to not feel the stress. Mm-hmm. And so there's like a contraction in that. Does that make sense? Does the question make sense?
Yeah. So there's the the stress, the really strong stress that here is this the sensation of stress. And then there are parts that come up with ways of responding to that. One is we can what was it, 3? There was the loving it, kind of and then the third was
There's
to
the loving
we
it
say that
or the
again?
yeah.
Yeah.
So one was like just trying to like extend love to the part. One was to try to welcome the part as it is.
Huh?
And then the third was to find in that moment amidst all the chaos, like, you know, the being, the presence, like what aspect
Yeah.
of being is here amidst all of this.
Great, great. And so these are the 3 ways, loving it, welcoming, oh, we can find beingness even in the midst of that. And there may be parts that are and like you could see what they are. If they're spiritual achievers, ones that are looking for relief, healing parts, or just I need, I need to find my way back to neutrality, equanimity, peace. And so we can watch the parts that are doing that, that have an idea. This could be helpful parts that are trying those 3 things. And then, but there's also, because you're describing it now, there's awareness of that. Oh, there's awareness of part that's like, hey, I have an idea. We can love it. I have an idea. We can welcome it. I have an idea. We can find the beingness that's here. It's like, oh, cool. Uh, and there's awareness of all of that. And so in a way, maybe each of those are the hero's journey, right? It's like, okay, what do we do about this? And each of these are different knights coming to address this discomfort. Because there's an idea that from the knights that if we can kind of relieve this discomfort, right? These are 3 ways of kind of trying to find relief, that something would be better, that we'll be able to refine the beingness, the peace, the flow, the connectedness, the force, whatever. And so cool, cool. That's how it plays in your system. And can we also see in the midst of even that, in the midst of the stress and whatever those 3 responses are the loudest in the moment, do we notice that we're aware of that? Like we're aware of, you often call it like on the stage, this is the theater that's happening. There is the stress here. There's the stress and there's the other part. Whatever this, I don't know what the stress looks like on the stage, like how that's represented. Stress, oh, there's stress. And then there are the parts like, oh, coming to love it. And you see that in the theater, there's awareness of it. And just, I guess the interesting thing is to notice that in the awareness of it, oh, there it is. The awareness of it is there's okayness here and this that's aware of the theater. I don't know how's it playing. Where you want to go with that one?
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, um, as I was asking the question, I mean, you've kind of rephrased the question, or it's like, yeah, it's like I'm seeing those as potential. I'm seeing those 3 nights as like potential answers to the perceived problem, but in reality, those are just more parts. And can I just welcome those parts?
And there is, yes, there's welcome, and there's another, because as we play with those, because those are really there's really 3 views of effortless IFS that you're describing in
Yeah.
a way. The and it becomes interesting to notice, like we have parts that can do it and try to help us, right? Just like yours, these knights, they're here, they're absolute heroes that are coming to try to help, right? But then there's also having it happen from beingness. In Katie's words, this is the sense of we don't do the work with an agenda. It almost becomes automated. It's just like parts are met. In this work, it's the same. It's the idea that because self has no agenda, it just loves and welcomes. And it's like there can be a sense of the first view is a celebration of the parts. It's just like loving what is, celebration of the parts, celebration of the stress. Oh, there's stress here, noticing that, noticing the stress and just that. And then it's more the third view, this sense of welcoming. There's just what you are is openness, is welcoming. There's stress here. No, there's stress here. It hurts. And the night is we need to do something about this, but self just welcomes it. It just welcomes this welcoming the night is doing. It is welcoming. It is love. It is that okayness. And we notice that. And then we go even more subtle. And this is that third night who's like, oh no, don't you understand? I've been studying with Byron Katie. I can, I got there's some real subtleness here. I've been listening to Joseph Campbell, and I've watched Star Trek a dozen times, Star Wars a dozen times. Like, I know about the Force. I know this energy. I can see that. It's like there's beingness here in the very contraction and stress. And so that's the beingness also, that it just as it is with, there's an intimacy with the parts, with the stress. As in that intimacy with the stress, it almost becomes like, wow, what, something same here. There's the stress itself isn't really separate from self. And we just there's a sense of the resonance of that. And that can all happen from here, from there. Which you and I've done a dozen times together, which you do all the time, and your system knows this all intimately. And I think in a way, maybe the parts are just representing what is happening naturally often in Ethan's system from self.
Yeah. That's really cool. And I also can say that I have had the experience of it just happening, and then have the experience of, I need to do this, or this needs to happen, right? Or I want this to happen, which is very different.
But isn't that awesome? It's like, wait a minute, I really like it. I really like that other play. I really like the piece, the okayness. Like, let's do something to make this happen more. And it often helps, right? It's the idea that's what the whole idea with effortless EIFS, that it's the complement. It's more of an awareness practice to complement our active practices, to complement what our parts do to help. And so, yay, that you've got these knights that come in and do their things. And then, hey, you've got beingness that's doing the same thing. We're working together. Hey, we're loving everything that arises here. You are the guest house that welcomes.
All right, I have another question. I have a question for you.
Okay. I gotta say, this is really fun. Like, this is literally brand new here. The idea of including Joseph Campbell in this, because I just love the way it makes it even more universal. I love mythology. I love that, like, he'll talk about archetypes, right? It's like, for him, he'll find the universal archetypes throughout the mythologies. And in a way, we're trying to play the same game to find the archetypes in our parts, in this beingness and in the parts. And it just makes it's just fun. So thanks for playing.
Oh yeah, it's so fun, and I can so see that, and I think we all can, especially when you start talking about dragons and knights. Like, that's easy, but there are other more subtle ones like gatekeepers, and I've noticed parts like that in my system for sure, which is so cool.
A gatekeeper. What's a gatekeeper in your system?
Yeah, well, this has to do with the question that I was going to ask you. So let's ask it. Ethan struggles with, I don't know if that's the right word. Ethan has, Ethan seems to have a sensitive physical system, right? So things irritate the body, the nose, the eyes, allergies. And I've started to notice, or started to turn my awareness to, part of what goes on when this starts to happen. And it's very subtle. And like, often what goes along with an allergy, or let's just call it not feeling well, seems to be like a part, right? A part that comes in to manage. So then I feel like I almost feel like the allergy itself is kind of a gatekeeper, right? Like it's a or it's a it's a it's guarding a threshold that if once you were to cross this threshold, um, you it's a little like what you were talking about earlier with like what you were saying, the fine print, right? Like, because once this threshold is crossed, there's going to be stuff over there that you have not been exposed to before. So like that's what a gatekeeper is, right? That's their
Yay!
job.
Yes, yes. Let me just say, I was just watching. Let me just before you go further, I was just watching again the Bill Moyers interview with Joseph Campbell, and Bill Moyers says, I think no, maybe Joseph Campbell says his favorite scene. Yeah, his favorite scene is the bar scene.
Mm.
Remember the bar scene with all this is in the Star Wars, the
In
first
Star
one
Wars,
back
yeah,
in,
yeah,
back in the like I don't know 77 or something, and the bar scene with all these characters. He said the why it's so cool is like it's like the stepping in towards going into the unknown, and you got these characters that have all been in space and all been there, but like they haven't gone there. It's like that the verge of stepping into that, and that's where maybe when you talk about allergies as a gatekeeper to a place of that we don't know. It's the unknown. It's like, well, do we really want to go there? You really want to get in a spaceship with these creatures and
yeah.
lose
Yeah.
control?
Yeah. And so he's met there. The hero of that movie is met there by a person who tries to kill him, right? Like, and then he survives. He has a guardian. Obi-Wan as his guardian, or maybe
I think that's right. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And it
So what's our guardian in this one? In going into this unknown, right? This is as we get to know. I mean, it's beautiful where they call it the force. We get to know the beingness that's always here. It's like, and then whatever the flavor is in your system, right? In our group the other day, like Corey started to find this okayness and
yeah,
this love that's always here. And as we get to know, or maybe it's presence, awareness, peace, flow, whatever it is, it's like, wait a minute. It's like my hand is being held. Like, or even safety. There's safety here in that in going into that unknown. He had Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? It's like,
yeah.
yay, yay. And sometimes as kids, we have our dad who's holding our hand, right? It's like, but
So yes, that's exactly right. And for me, I wonder, and I'm actually not clear about this. So it's hard, it's difficult for me to ask this question. But maybe the allergy is the gatekeeper, or maybe the gatekeeper or the guardian is the part that steps in when I'm having the allergic reaction. Because when this happens, I feel so disconnected from self, right? It feels like it's impossible for me to connect. And I know that I'm blended, but it feels like, something stepping in.
well, yeah. So here we go with the part that steps in. I because we had this in our group the other day when people were talking about things that were coming up, and I was like, so what's that like? What's that discomfort? What's that fear? What's that shame? What's that I don't know what to do? What's that like? And what we often found was we'd have parts that would come up and kind of be like, oh, I don't need to wait, you really are inviting me to really like feel this, whatever the the allergy, the discomfort, the unknown. And I feel like we have the parts that kind of protect us from it, which are beautiful, right? Because there's a reason for that. And then and we don't, as you know, in our don't, we won't override, we don't like bring out our lightsaber and say, get out of the way. We're gonna dive in and go into that. We don't do that.
Yeah.
But it's like there's a sense of like whatever the places are that we don't know. what Katie calls the underworld, right? Which is really fun to get a sense of the underworld. It's like there's a reason, because you hear people talk about trauma. It's like last thing you want to do is re-traumatize your system. You don't want to go to things that are like going to be like, holy shit, it's like I got bullied all over again, right? We don't want to do that. But somehow there seems to be a gracefulness in just waiting to see how it opens and what opens and what, oh, it's time that we can be with that. And how am I doing with what you were sharing? How are we doing?
Yeah, I think we're doing I think we're doing well. It's a it's a it's a it's a it's a fascinating exploration. And I love this idea of this grace being in fascination with just an awareness of it and what's happening, and is it moving, and is it opening, or when does it not, or when does it close. um, and I'll also say for me, um, this part I feel like I've been dealing with these physical things for ever. I mean, for
Yeah.
as early back as I can remember, and and it feels like this this part is no longer serving, or no longer that role, maybe from my point of view. I'm ready for that role to change. And also, like, yeah, I don't want to go in with a lightsaber, you know?
Yeah. And so, but the parts that are, let's say, more the resistance to it, and we're like, we're not going there, or the parts that are like, gosh, God darn it. It's like all this physical stuff that's been here for years. This is such a pain in the ass. And I would just like it not to be here. Why is it here? I don't want it to be here. I want it to change. It's like that's the real interest. It's so interesting to be with that, to fall in love with that part. That's
Yeah.
just wanting it to be easier. Um, and this is, it's so brilliant in classic IFS. Like we don't just dive past any of those. It's like even those we really hear them. And we hear and there's something about, there's a reason the gatekeeper's there. The reason that, these parts that are like, no, I don't like this. This isn't
Yeah.
okay. It's like those, like, can we truly find okay with that part being there? Is it okay that there's resistance here to the physical challenges that we have? That my darn back hurts all the time and I can't play tennis anymore. Like, it's like, no, I want to play tennis. I love tennis. I want to play. And it's like, no, it's like the resistance to what is. It's like, this is Sid. But it's like, can we fall in love with that? Like the kid that wants to go out and play with all of his friends, but he's homesick. It's like, can we really like not just accept it, but almost fall and be just love and adore that part.
Yeah. 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 That's beautiful. And in my system, it feels like this part that comes up. It feels like this part that comes up, which can also be loved and accepted, is one that comes in almost in reaction to all those resistance voices,
Yeah.
where it's just like, no, 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 we're not going to have any resistance. We're not going to have anything. We're just going to like kind of go numb, top to bottom. Which is why it's been so hard for me to work with it. I feel like it's just like a numbing part.
But isn't that an amazing? I'm trying to bring. I don't know how to tie it back into our Star Wars thing and our
Yeah,
Joseph Campbell,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
like,
I know,
but can
me
you
too.
see how protective that is? The one that numbs it out, like it's like if like Luke had to go back when he went back and he saw that his uncle and aunt had been massacred, or Bell's been massacred. It's like the idea of having his hand held in that, And it's like, or that something, if it did disassociate, or it's like, this is too much. It's like the beauty of that, that does that. It's like, okay, it's time to have a beer, or it's time to do something to get away from this, right? It's just, there's there's such sweetness in the parts that take care of us that way, right? Because some of us, like, we know from our experiences, we've had experiences that have been too much, where we've been surrounded by dragons, and it's like, oh, and then what's the gentlest, most loving thing to give us a little, like, God, get me out of this dream, And
Yeah.
so I'm just saying that for this part that you're describing, like, can we really accept that and appreciate what it's doing for us? Because I
Yeah.
know you want to be Luke. You want to just get the jet set and just like, okay, let's just do that. I want to go into the fear that's in my system. I want to see it all. I want to welcome it. I want to come on. I want what Katie's been promising. I want to just open up to all of this and know this. So I want to welcome all the fears that are here. I want to face them. I want to do that. But you notice your system won't let you do it that way. Like, you got the numb out part, you got the resistance part, you got these parts that won't let it happen. And so we're just so gentle with the whole thing.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And still, it's like, Sid, that doesn't work. But still, you can say that, but still, I want it now. I know what I want. And you're telling me, like, you got to do it. It's like, oh, that's not really helpful, Sid.
Yeah, like there is a part of me that absolutely feels that way, and there's also a part that knows that there just are no shortcuts in this game, right? You just got to play the game. Like, the game is the game, and when I try to shortcut the game, it doesn't work.
What if like your son was like, Daddy, tell me how old your son is again,
7,
Ethan?
just turned 7.
7. Daddy, like, the 13-year-olds have so much more fun. They can ride their bike wherever they want to go. I just want to grow up. I am so tired of being this. Wait, Daddy, I really want to be able to drive. I want to be 16. I want
Okay,
to.
we're in the middle of this. You know what it is? That the middle schoolers get key cards, and he's obsessed. They wear a key card around their thing, and they can swipe it and go into the building whenever they want. And he's like, Dad, do you think I could skip second and third and fourth grade? He's like, I just gotta have a key card, Dad. I just gotta.
And so, how do we respond to this? It's just like, one, you just adore it. You just love it. But also, you're like, I don't want him to miss a minute of this. It's like just the adore of where he is. It's like the fullness. It's just where he is. It's like you could see that. It's like, what if we could see our systems that way? I mean, that's where it's all going. The loving what is, the adoring what is, this thing. And it's just like the innocence of this. It's like, I want the key card now. I want greater peace now. I want that numbing out to be gone now. I want more of the bliss of being now. It's like, oh, that's so sweet. You want the key card now. You want it 2 years now instead of now. Oh, okay. Oh,
Oh, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And yet, this part of me would say to you, yeah, but the numbing out part interferes with my life. Like, he misses things on my schedule, on my calendar, and there's these like things that I'm so tired of. Like he gets anyway. But yeah, that's what it is. It's just like wanting the key card for sure, no question.
yeah. If we Again, I guess I've seen a model of this in Dick Schwartz, the absolutely adoring of all the parts.
Yeah.
And just that when we're talking about this adoring of, oh, the numbing out, and then the part that just hates it. It's like this, don't you see how it's getting in the way of my life? And it's like you
Yeah.
forget things and all of this numbing out's a real problem. And then just like another thing, it's like, oh, the numbing out, look how it's like a hero in my system, how it just helps me find peace and okayness in the midst of, if it gets stressful, if something gets to a certain level, it's like, wow, numbing out's always here. And it's like, wow, there's okayness, there's relaxation. Oh,
Yeah, Yeah, and yeah, and when you create that metaphor with my son, I mean, really, there's just no question when he says that. It's just like, oh my gosh, like this place he's in is so amazing. And I really don't want him to miss a second. Like, I wish he could see how sweet it is where he is, right? So can I extend that to myself? Wow. Now that's a big one.
Doesn't it feel rich too, that possibility? I share that idea. It just felt, oh my God, what a rich life, rich possibility. No,
Yeah, what a rich life. It's true. It's
uh,
true. What a rich life. What a rich possibility. Yeah,
so
it's so rich that it makes me rethink what a rich life is.
mm, yeah. Oh, that's so nice, Ethan. So let's have something really going on, like another 5 minutes today together. If there's like, what else? What you got with this? How do we bring it together? What else you got?
How do we bring it together? How do we bring it together? Um, yeah, I think, for me, it's somehow circling back to gentleness, which you always do anyway. But in this idea of like Joseph Campbell and like slaying the dragon, and the gatekeepers and the guardians, and it's like it feels like Byron Katie's work can be like this too sometimes to me. Like the work is how we like slay the dragon. It can take on that kind of um, whatever. Um, but this game is different. This game is so much more about gentleness.
Mm.
So maybe how does one
Because where are the dragons? Like the dragons, right? The dragons, these that the dragons, the bad guys, the evil guys, the part of darkness, the axes of evil inside. Like where is all of that? What is all of that? Is it something that we have to defeat?
well, I think if you were to ask this part of mine that's frustrated, really, really frustrated with my numbing out part, this part would say that part is evil, that
Yeah,
part is ruining my life. That part is keeping me from getting to where Ethan needs to be in life.
absolutely. So from that part, we can hear that. It's like, oh, wow, this part that is so devoted to ideas of what happiness and fulfillment will be for Ethan and what that could way to get there. And that part clearly sees the numbing out this way. So we got that. And can we love that part does that? Wow, what an advocate, what a knight for Ethan. And then when you bring in the gentleness of what we're doing, it's like the gentleness and the welcoming that part, loving that part that we just described. Like, really, wow. Then at the same time, this gentleness, this space, it's got enough capacity that it doesn't just include this one, that it's got capacity. Perhaps, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it has capacity to even include the ones that we label as evil, as dragons. And then if we do, then those are also welcomed in their innocence.
Mm. Yeah. And maybe that doesn't quite nail it because to me, that part isn't necessarily a dragon, And yes, from the point of view of this other part, that part is a dragon for sure.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
or an addict that you see like on the street. I mean, it has that kind of revulsion, Oh, here's this
yeah.
guy shooting up in the middle of the afternoon on a park bench. Like,
Right. And can we find that? what's most like that in our own system? What's the part that's most like that? That addict that's just like, I do not want to feel the pain, the shame, the wrong. I don't want to feel the cold. I don't want to feel any of that. Hey, this needle, it takes me away from that. Like even just because we include that addict, and then if we can find that in ourselves, that which can absolutely, or we can just relate to it, or a part that is just can relate to that, including that.
Mm.
Yeah. Woohoo!
I feel like we went
I
on a
love, we have
little
to start with,
journey.
I know we got to start with music every time. The music's so fun. I love the music. Yeah. Okay. This is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you so much.
Hmm.